Okay, I think what we'll do is, looks like we've got more than a quorum here, so if it's okay with the group, we'll go ahead and convene the meeting. And I will call roll here real quick. Ed Martinez. Here. Dustin Hanby. Here. Dan Haley. Gary Potts. Here. Deborah Cantorero.
Here.
Julio Herta.
Here.
Herta, thank you. Crystal Carras. Here. Al Hutchings.
Here.
Dale Pittman. Here. Alex Soto. Simon Frazier.
Here.
Moan Shane Chow. Here. Alice Arisa. I know I killed that. I apologize, Alice. David Krause. Here. James Karch. Roger Marmine. Here. And Joella McGrath.
Here.
Very good. And the next thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 28th meeting. Do I have a motion? Dave moves, Gary seconds. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Roger Marhart is abstaining. He was not here at the last meeting. Public comments. Opportunity for public comment. Do we have anybody here who wishes to address the council? Big pardon?
This row ought to.
Do something.
The answer is no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving right along then, we have the ethics check-in. Today it's the academic senate's turn.
Okay, so I'm just going to quote a short portion of Policy 3110, which is the professional ethics of faculty, the procedures, section 3. It says, as colleagues, faculty members have obligations that derive from common membership in the community of scholars. It is the responsibility of faculty members, A, to avoid discrimination against or harassment of their faculty colleagues, B, to avoid the disruption of classes or academic projects of their colleagues, C, to respect and defend free inquiry, D, to show due respect to their faculty colleagues in the exchange of criticism and ideas, E, to acknowledge academic debt and strive to be objective in the professional judgment of colleagues, and F, to accept their share of faculty obligations related to the governance of the institution. So just a little reminder of our ethical responsibilities to each other.
Thank you, Ed, very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, item 5, standing committee reports. Item 8 is in relation to the enrollment priorities and class scheduling, which is an enrollment management report, so we will defer that until we get to that item. And then at the same time, I believe item 9 is something that Ed will speak to as well, Academic Senate, on the professional development program. I wanted to remind folks that the item 5 is sort of like a standing agenda item. And as we remember, there are 9 standing subcommittees for the College Council. And by way of reminder, they are the Planning and Priorities Standing Committee, the Enrollment Management Committee, the College Council Calendar Committee, the Professional Development Standing Committee, the Sustainability Standing Committee, the Budget and Resource Allocation Committee, the Health and Safety Committee, and the Facilities Standing Committee. During every College Council meeting, each one of those standing committees has the ability to come and report to the College Council anything that they would like to discuss with the Council at that time. If you remember our process might be that we convey things to them that we want them to take a look at, or in the work, in their own individual work as committees dealing with these areas of the college's needs, they may want to come to us and report out any information that they've got. So today, for example, Dr. Bell is going to talk to us a little bit about a calendar committee item and report to that. One second. And so I just want to remind all members of the committee that that you can and we can do that, if you will, as we go forward here. So, with that in mind, does anybody have any questions or comments about that before we move Dr. Bell on the calendar committee? Everybody happy and understand how that process would work? The one thing that I just trying to remember here is the technology piece of this, Dwayne, Vice President Cable. I'll come back to that for a second here. Maybe it's the facilities part of this, but we'll come back and we'll talk about that. Dr. Bell, would you like to speak to us about the calendar committee?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Miller. Ladies and gentlemen, briefly from the calendar committee, the report is, I think everyone has in front of them a copy of the 2012-2013 college calendar, which is coming forward to this committee from calendar committee as a recommendation for the document to be adopted by our board and then subsequently submitted to the Chancellor's office. So the document before you is the same as was tentatively presented to you at our last committee when I presented the corrections that were not on the previous document are there now. Specifically, that there is a date October 2nd, which is a faculty professional development day, which appears on this calendar. Other than that, all the dates are the same. Nothing has changed beyond that. And so again, from the calendar committee, this is the document which has been vetted through and approved by that committee and is now being recommended to council for final review and approval. And ultimately, if it's done here, they will go to the Board of Trustees for approval, and at the May meeting, subsequently from there, will go to the Chancellor's office from the college as our official college calendar for 2012-2013.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments about Dr. Bell's presentation?
Point of information.
Yes.
Is it appropriate to move approval that this body would approve this calendar? Is that the appropriate action that we would take?
I think that could be an action that this body takes. Dr. Bell, would you have a concern if we took that action?
Not at all, because again, the calendar committee, our position is we're recommending it to this committee, and I think it is appropriate for the committee to vote approval.
Okay, I'd like to move approval.
Okay, we have a motion approval discussion.
Well, let me think. This calendar has also been presented to the Academic Senate. It was presented at our last meeting, but we never take a vote on an issue at its first presentation. It is agendized for our meeting on Monday, at which point I do expect a vote to be taken and I expect approval. So technically, I suppose that in a way, I think that from the Academic Senate perspective, this would be an advisory vote.
So does everyone understand the issue here? The Academic Senate as a body has not yet had an opportunity to vote on this particular calendar?
Not formally, right?
Not formally, but they have seen it?
Yes.
Okay. So what Ed is suggesting, if the person made the motion and the second would just amend the motion to say an advisory, College Council advisory vote.
I'm open to that.
Yes, sir.
Question, actually, a couple of them. So, are you saying that this is an academic and professional matter that is therefore requires approval by the Academic Senate before any action can be taken?
Yes.
Is there anything on this campus that isn't an academic and professional matter?
There are a number of items that would not be considered academic or professional matters. For example, we would not take that position on, say, the classified hiring policy or a number of other things, but these are academic and professional.
So, for example, October 2nd is a faculty professional development day, and that would be considered an academic and professional matter in the sense that that's part of it. Is there a particular problem with that, Simon?
I'm just a little curious because it seems like every time we get something that's sort of substantive, it's advisory. So it's just wondering where we as a college council sort of stand, I suppose. But I actually have a specific question on the calendar itself.
Okay.
The September, the October 2nd date, how was that chosen? Or why was that particular date chosen for faculty professional development?
It was the consideration of all the members of the committee, but particularly the faculty members of the committee, that we needed to identify a date that was not too early in the semester, but also not too late to allow sufficient time. And the second, particularly, that Tuesday was chosen so that it didn't disrupt the natural flow of classes, particularly classes which are scheduled on Monday, because we have a number of naturally occurring holidays in the fall semester which fall on Sunday. So it was not, I'm sorry, on Monday. So it was not to disrupt, take another Monday class out of instruction, if you will.
Okay, and so the process, let me just make sure it gets correct. Once it's gone through the academic senate, it goes straight to the board of trustees for approval and then submission to the state.
It's my understanding that this calendar does not have to be approved by the Board of Trustees, that it's just an action of the institution, and if it's approved by the various shared governance groups and approved by the superintendent and president, this is how we would be doing business. It does have to be submitted to the state, though, as I recall. Is that correct, Dr.
It
Bell?
does have to be submitted to the state. I don't want to speak to whether or not it formally has to go to the board for approval. However, our current calendar, 2011-2012, did go to the board at their May meeting for approval. So if we're going to be consistent with last year's procedure anyway, that is what we were probably going to do for this year.
In discussions with Dr. Rocha this morning on this topic, he and I were discussing whether or not it was necessary to take this to the board, since in essence this is our normal calendar. Nothing about this calendar has changed in terms of how we normally do our business. If it's this body's pleasure to have the board approve it, we'd have to recommend that to Dr. Roach, and he would consider that at the May meeting. He's putting the agenda together right now, so it's up to,
If I may, I would suggest that we probably do that, because this calendar is not the same as next year's calendar, not the same as this year, because we have put the inclusion of the faculty professional development day in there. So technically it is a different calendar. And so if for no other reason than that, I think it would be appropriate to at least, if nothing more, to take it to the board as an information item so they're aware of what is going forward from the college to the chancellor's office.
And if we can just clarify then, when we put this calendar out to the campus, that the Orange Day actually doesn't mean the campus is closed, correct?
Orange Day.
The faculty professional development day. So that is a day when for classes the campus is closed.
That's correct, and I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. It looks pink on my calendar.
Oh,
yes, I'm
right.
sorry, I couldn't see it.
That's
yes,
fine.
That's correct.
Okay, so I would just maybe suggest that when we publicize this, that for students it's known that that means don't come.
No classes, they correct.
Okay. All right, so I hear the consensus then that we'd like to recommend to Dr. Rocha that it goes to the board for approval based upon a past practice or what have you.
Could I say something?
Sure.
Past practice too has been that the FA, and I'm not sure about the classified unions, have signed off as a matter of protocol and procedure. And I know there's been lots of discussion about a significant calendar change, i.e. eliminate winter and so forth. That's clearly contractual and negotiable. So this one, though, I've signed off on this kind of calendar for years. I was on the calendar committee a long time, and so I would, as an FA rep, sign off. I would actually prefer if we kept some kind of protocol that the FA formally sign off if we could, even though I'm in perfect agreement with it. And I want to also commend Dr. Bell and his committee. Krista Walter sits on the committee for doing an outstanding job. It was not easy. They came to consensus in a very professional way. It was handled with the utmost integrity. And I just want to really say well done. And thank you for getting something approved and through in a meaningful way, and the process was very good. But if we could have, I'd like an FA sign off as part of the process. And I'm not sure about the process.
I'm not aware of signing
Well, if I may, there is a sign-off sheet, if you will, that is prepared, which will accompany this document. So it's, again, following the protocol from previous years. All the members of the calendar committee, all the shared governance groups, there is a point for them to sign off, and I believe we're anticipating having that done by the time it formally goes to the board, so it'll be identified
Thank
as
you.
trustees that's been done.
Okay.
Sure, I would like for it to come to my attention.
Yeah, I believe it is, but I'll make sure if that isn't the case.
Okay, so what we are agreeing to is that following the traditional protocol, there will be a sign-off sheet signed off by the shared governance groups and the appropriate collective bargaining groups. And then we'll get all that together, and then we'll get to Dr. Roach and let him know to add an agenda item for Wednesday's meeting, so that we can get this calendar approved at the May 2nd meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, at this point, it'll be our representatives that we have on the calendar committee that will be signing for us for the shared governance. Because CSEA has a representative on the calendar
That's fine.
committee.
We're going to get this all done by Friday at noon.
Yeah, well, all the members of the calendar committee, I think basically we've all signed off on it, but if not, that is exactly the protocol that every shared government group that's represented on that particular committee will in fact sign to that effect.
Okay. All right, so, yes, Dave?
I do have a point of clarification. If this does go to the academic senate and they do not approve it or make changes to it, does it have to come back here?
If somehow or another that were to happen, I suppose we would send it back to the calendar committee with whatever concern is voiced. But remember, it was presented at our last meeting, so we do have this calendar version. I heard no objection or concerns. In fact, there had been a previous agreement that we should indeed have the date of October 2nd as our professional development day. So I fully expect that this version that you have will be approved by the Senate on Monday.
And if for some reason it's not, we can always pull the agenda item prior to the Wednesday meeting, if it comes down to that, which it doesn't sound like it will. Okay, do we have agreement on this? It sounds like we do. We have a motion on the floor. It's the advisory that the College Council approves the calendar as presented by the calendar committee, subject to the approval of the academic senate, sounds like. Is that pretty much the motion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Simon abstains. Thank you, sir. Okay. Going back for a second to the standing committees, we did leave one off this list, which is the Technology and Academic Computing Standing Committee. And I don't know if Vice President Cable wants to speak to that issue or not today in terms of how you might want to merge committees together or not.
I can speak a little bit.
Sure, that would be great if you would,
Maybe
please.
you can help me just a little bit with some discussion. The Technology and Academic Computing Standing Committee has met several times, and that's okay, you can be there. Has met several times. We've had probably 3 or 4 members that typically attend. We've had, it's been difficult, for instance, having the right membership present. Students is still, there's some participation, but I don't recall that we've had a student come to any of our meetings. Of late, Mark Sakata also had to indicate to us he needed to step down because of just other demands on his time. And but the issue has come up, and we had some discussion in previous meetings that as we're moving forward, I have brought forward, and I actually discussed this with the committee, of creating 2. I would call them more substantial committees at the institution. One called the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, and the other one called the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee. And what I could do and should do for the College Council, I think I need to come and actually address these issues with this group, but I'd certainly want to get my counterparts on the committee back together. But they had recommended that, that we actually move forward with these two more substantial committees. The Learning Technology Advisory Committee on the surface is really to deal more with the academic or the non-administrative technology needs across the institution. On a high level, this group is made up of 2 faculty representatives from every academic division, including the library. So just in faculty representation, it's 24 faculty, or at least at this particular juncture, depends on how reorganization moves forward. And then plus there are several others, so it makes a membership of this group somewhere close to 30. And while we don't want to enlarge that anymore, the important piece is in this is we actually have representation from every academic division. One of the things, and Mary Ann Lawn is currently chairing that. Who's the co-chair? Do you remember, Dan?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Do I?
An individual to volunteer to co-chair that, and I very much apologize for not having that name on the top of my head here. But the charge of that group is to address some very important issues. First of all, classroom standards in terms of technology. You know, we've talked about the Smart 18 initiative, where we're going to make all classrooms smart. We feel that the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, which makes recommendations to both myself and to the Vice President for Instruction. So it's those recommendations for whether it's smart classrooms, whether it's technology used by students, whether it's the laptops and the configurations of laptop recommendations for faculty use, adjunct needs with respect to technology and those kinds of things, plus the development of a technology master plan that addresses the academic, the technology needs on the academic side of the house, the non-administrative. Because there's more than just computers and classrooms. There's the SimMan for nursing, and there's other types of technology needs that really need to be part of the entire technology master plan. So this group right now has been meeting every other week to actually help put some standards to the technology, to the smart classroom standard, and whatever that needs ultimately ends up being. So anyway, that's that group. On the administrative side, as we get closer to making a decision concerning our administrative information system, this is our last week of actual demonstrations across the college, and there's been a lot of participation. Next week is a very technical week for several of us as we meet with each of the vendors to look at technical issues and portal and stuff like that. And this Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is really the basis for how we implement technology on the administrative side of the house as we move forward. This is actually initially composed of about 14 teams. The difference with this, it's not what you would call a traditional committee. This is a group that gets together that are the actual doers of making things happen in implementing whatever administrative technology that's part of the project. What I will do as we move forward, we have not organized that group yet, but I would like to bring that forward with the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee and the Learning Technology Advisory Committee concept, and say this is what we would like to essentially replace this technology and academic computing subcommittee. There's really no need, in our view, to have yet another set of representatives to represent on another committee when we're really trying to encapsulate all of those issues. I've had some discussion with Ed with respect to the Academic Senate and the concept of where does the technology committee of the Academic Senate fall in this, and whether we really need to do that as part of this bigger picture. I think we get a lot of faculty involvement and student involvement as well as staff on both of these groups, so I feel very comfortable with it. But that's where we are, but let us bring that back in a much more formal way, and I can show pictures and do the dance.
Great. So in summary, you've got the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee that are getting off the ground and functioning, and the possibility is that your group may come back with a recommendation that in some form or fashion those two entities take the place of, quote unquote, the Technology and Academic Computing Standing Committee that exists right now for the College Council.
That's correct. This is what we've discussed in our previous meetings.
All right, does anybody have any questions about those comments? I saw Deborah first and then Dave. Deborah.
I have a question, Mr. Cable, that we have one classified person on the technology committee, and I'm wondering what the classified participation will be, or how you envision it for these other two committees.
Well, you know, I think that it depends on the committee structure, but the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is actually, a majority of that membership are the actual doers across the institution in every respective division. So there's going to be, every union organization is more than well represented on a day-to-day basis in that particular committee. Now, on the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, we have certain representatives that support classrooms in the library, and I'm trying to think of some others. But what I can do is when we come back and actually show, we can have a little bit better clarity, and you can look at how the representation is going to be. Because on the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee side, those teams that are under that will really ebb and flow with who's involved with what, depending on the technology that needs to be implemented. Because we're not coming back with recommendations, we're actually doing things and implementing things and following up with where are we and where aren't we and how we move forward.
Well, and I appreciate that, and part of my concern and issue is that as Vice President of the Classified Senate, I have to keep records of all the classified committee participants. So I would need to know that so I can put it in my files as well.
I think that the same rules and processes that we do with any committee, that we would make sure that we follow those types of procedures so that we have minutes, we have, I'm not sure about the recording of those meetings, but or the benefit of recording those meetings, but certainly who's participated, and those would be public record.
Great, thank you.
All right, sure. There was another.
Actually, two. But Dave allowed me to go
Dave?
before him.
Oh, okay.
The other question I wanted to ask you, Mr. Cable, is you mentioned a Learning Technology Advisory Committee, and it sounds like the majority of that committee is faculty. And I didn't hear you say that there was classified employees, and which brings a great concern of mine, is because although there's things that is going to be discussed as it relates to the classroom, you got a lot of secretary, clerical people. That's usually the first point of contact that's being asked for assistance in those classrooms. You also have staff that's managing and controlling the labs and running the labs. And so a lot of them, and just for point of record, I'm also the president of the Classified Senate, so I'm not speaking on behalf of the union, but a lot of the classified employees, division secretaries, et cetera, has great concern about their input in the labs, et cetera. So I wanted to just kind of...
Well, again, let me come back with a formal representation, and so that you have something in front of you that would indicate the type of membership that would be involved, and then we can tweak this any way we need to. I mean, we're very flexible. Obviously, these are large groups, and the danger with large groups is that the larger you get, the less productive they become. And part of the objective here is to actually really come out with solid recommendations about classroom technology, teaching, learning technology across the institution, and for the most part, not necessarily in total, but for the most part, faculty input and involvement in that is certainly the most critical, but not necessarily the total critical picture there. I think you will find too, when you get involved with the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee, that there are academic related issues of which classified staff and others would certainly be involved in and affect that side of the operation, not necessarily in the classroom. Okay?
Okay. Any other? Yes, David.
Yeah, I have a problem with the staffing too. You said these committees already met, and I haven't seen anything asking for classified people to be on these committees. And there should have been a formal request went out to staff them, and not just handpick people.
Well, except Dave, these are not college council committees at that point. So it does not necessarily fall under the shared governance rubric at that point in time. But what Vice President Cable is suggesting is that possibly going forward, it might take the place of this particular subcommittee, and as a result of that, then we follow the appropriate representation.
Essentially, these are unofficial.
Exactly.
Until
advisory bodies.
Until they've been blessed. At least from our subcommittee, conceptually, these have been supported.
Right.
But again, we feel, at least I do, uncomfortable with such a small representation saying this is the kind of concept we want to go forward. So let us come back with an official recommendation, and then we'll take a very serious look at how we make sure that we're fair and equitable across the group and still be productive.
Roger, I think.
Thank you very much. Dwayne, I'm looking
Certainly.
at my notes from a Senate meeting March 12th, and you presented.
I did.
And you gave a very clear presentation. In my notes, I wrote down 360 total classrooms, and currently about 116 are smart. If I wrote
Correct.
that right.
Old smart.
Old smart, I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
I'm old, but I'm not smart. So
Okay. Let's don't go there.
And one of my questions is, I also wrote down aggressive, less aggressive implementation. And I wrote down also that one plan was to have all 360 classrooms smartened in 18 months. And from an FA point of view, I know you're the messenger, I don't mean to shoot you, but I just want it to be heard that we're concerned that in a time when we're cutting classes, cutting programs, and so forth, that we're aggressively moving forward in technology when in fact we might consider the pace. We're not against technology, but we certainly don't want to be so aggressive that we're spending $5 or $10 million when we could be using that money for classes in the short term. So how is that discussion being conducted? Who's deciding on the pace? Who's deciding on how much money is being allocated in any given 3-month, 6-month period?
Well, first of all, right now, how much money have we spent to date? Zero. We have no standard yet. The faculty are still working on the standard. I believe I indicated that there were approximately 300 classrooms, of which 116 are currently smart, whatever degree of smart that really means. We anticipate that the old smart needs to be brought up to some new smart standard, so there's there may be a little tweaking, and there was some budget set aside for that. I also, if I recall our discussion, and I believe Dan's the one that asked the question with respect to the speed, that we would certainly and obviously need to be sensitive to the budget issues that we have to address. And while, I want to move as fast as we can sanely do, but yet certainly be sensitive to how we allocate the budget. And I think that's part of the process as we go and we work with BRAC and others to bring some of those initiatives forward as to what speed we're able to do that. But rest assured that there are a good number of faculty who are very interested in bringing our classrooms up to at least elementary and high school standards, and that's part of the effort of what we want to try to do to address that. But how quickly we do it, my goal is 1,800. I picked the number. It's mine. But if it needs to take longer, then we certainly can do that.
Okay. With the indulgence of the group and also the agreement of the group, item number 10 is Vice President's report. And I think going forward, we might have changed this agenda and put the Vice President reports up maybe under or after the Standing Committee reports, maybe even before. And then that way the VPs can stay, if they care to, based upon the other agenda items, or they can move on and do other things they need to do. So with that said, there's some general agreement with that. I'd like to ask Vice President Cable if there's anything else that he wants to speak to this group about, and then he can decide if he wants to move on or not.
Well, I certainly wanted to at least give an update with respect to where we are with the Administrative Information System selection process. As you will recall, we began almost 5 weeks ago, something like that, with campus management and workday. We had week-long presentations, and then we had a week off, and then we came back and we had Oracle with their PeopleSoft presentation. We've had lots of participation, and I certainly do appreciate everyone's involvement in that process and the evaluations that have been submitted. And then this week, we have it used to be called DataTel, but now they're called Illusion. They are actually demonstrating the Banner product, which Banner is used in a good number of the colleges and universities here in California. That process is going to wrap up this week, and next week we have technical discussions, and from that we are requesting financial proposals from all 3 vendors, and hopefully it is our plan that by the end of May that we will have some idea with respect to not only the selection that we're going to make, but what the total cost picture is going to be over a multi-year period. I like to see a 10-year total cost of ownership, because this type of a technology solution is quite expensive, and it gets, as you move down the years, there's things that get implemented over time. So we want to look at the total implementation piece. So, but that's moving along quite well, and we're still on target for finalizing a contract in June and getting started with our implementation in July.
Good. Questions, Simon?
Actually, I want to go back to technology committee. You said you have, do you have 1 student seat or 2 student seats right now?
I believe there is 2.
Is it 2?
1.
1. We've had a student.
I was 50 versus 50. You know, I could have flipped the coin.
We've actually have had a student appointed to that for a month and a half. So, and there's been no one showing up, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just I suppose this is a note for all of the committee chairs here. We've appointed students to all of the committees except for, I think, health right now. And if students aren't coming, we need to know, because then we can find different students or figure out why they aren't going, or if there's a communication issue, they're not getting notice about the meetings. Like, sometimes it's hard for us to get notice. So please make sure that your student members are either getting the call or that you know who they are. And if they don't, please just ask us, and we have the names on a little book.
We are asking for 2 representatives for the Learning Technology Advisory Committee and the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee each.
Now, again, I just want to remind everybody that those are not college council. Now, we can certainly assist with that, but when you say you're asking directly to the AS, or who you asked for?
Nobody's officially asked anything.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
In that we have put it on our membership list.
Gotcha. Okay.
That we would ask for 2 representatives. So be thinking about that as we move forward with those.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Vice President Cable regarding the AIS? Great thanks to Joellen, who is, I guess, the lion tamer trying to get all these meetings scheduled and coordinate all this crazy stuff.
She's done an outstanding job.
Yeah, she really has. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Lastamato or Dr. Van Pelt, do you want to do your report?
I could just talk briefly about the budget. The way that the budget is shaping up for next year appears that we are going to drop from about $116 million revenue in the general fund, probably down to $104 million. And of that, $2 million had already been set aside, if you recall, for the mid-year cut. So we're expecting something on the order of $6.5 million ongoing, and about $3 million is the February surprise. So pushing $10 million or thereabouts in additional cuts. So we won't actually find that out for a little while, and we won't find out the final numbers until about the middle of August. But that's what we're predicating the budget on, so FYI. Second thing is, in terms of the facilities master plan, there have been a lot of meetings going on around the campus, and I thank everybody for their participation in that. We're still expecting that the draft plan will go to the Board of Trustees for their approval prior to the end of the calendar year.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Rick, in the last couple of meetings, we've discussed Smart 18 and possible funding through Measure P, and my understanding is that's not a go, right?
No, it is possible to do some of that technology through Measure P. Part of the Measure P component is classroom upgrade. And classroom upgrade involves the physical classroom. It'll involve, the windows, the floor, and so forth, the whiteboards, but it also involves the technology. And I don't remember precisely, we have an oversight committee meeting this evening. I don't remember the exact number for classroom upgrade, but it's not an insignificant number. I don't think it's fully enough to do all the classrooms, but there's a chunk of it.
Al?
Dr. Rappelt, is it, from what you're hearing from Sacramento, is it getting more dire, or are things starting to loosen up a little bit?
Not loosening up at all. The expectation is that it's going to take 6 or 8 years to get out of this mess. And that's with an assumption that at some point the economy actually starts picking up, but it's not getting any better. The one other thing that I would point out is that we're going to propose a completely different way of doing budgeting this year. So that what we'll do is we will do far more block grant type budgeting to divisions and departments, to where a certain dollar amount is given to each department to do with as they best think is wise. So what that does is it takes us out of the central budgeting where we do the actual placement of dollars in cost centers, and allows far more flexibility to the divisions and the departments to make those decisions.
Rick, when you brought this up at the last meeting, you said that the divisions would be given a set amount of money, minus whatever the cuts are, their percentage of the cuts, but they'd still have a mandate to maintain their enrollment. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you this. When the school takes a hit on their budget, they just start cutting sections to save money. How come the divisions can't cut their sections too? Why do they have to maintain the same enrollment?
Well, because what we're trying to do is to fully insulate the students from the cuts.
Well, I understand that, but when you were doing the budget, you didn't want to insulate them. You just cut the sections. But when you're saying when the divisions have the money and they make the decisions, they can't do the same thing for the students.
No, and actually we didn't cut. From a fiscal point of view, we don't do any cutting. What we're trying to do is we're trying to allow far more flexibility to divisions to be able to make those determinations. Okay. So what that means is that, on the instructional side of the house, that they would be able to determine which sections are most needed and which ones are least needed. They'd have more flexibility in terms of sizes and so forth in order to minimize the impact to the students. So at no point did I go to any division and say, you must cut, and here's where cuts must take place. And that's precisely one of the reasons why we don't want to do that is a divisional and academic area.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but you're saying they'll have more flexibility, but you're still saying they have to maintain the same enrollment, and that doesn't sound very flexible to me.
Well, but I think that there are ways for us to be far more efficient, and I think that we've shown that, is that there are sections that the students need more than they need other sections. And I think that the closer those decisions are made to the ground, the better those decisions will be. And I'm not in the position to be able to do that, but I do know that it's possible for us to be more efficient. So if in the case of the sections that were cut prior to the beginning of the spring semester, we can cut those 45 sections, and you can offer 13 sections with equal or greater enrollment for a savings just there of over $50,000 at a divisional level, with the goal of minimizing any negative impact on students to help them not only get the classes that they require, but help them get through the institution in a timely basis. Then we will have achieved what we set out to do.
Okay, minimizing impact sounds a lot more flexible than mandating maintaining enrollment. Are we shifting here a little bit?
No, I think that that's a semantic difference. The point is that what we're trying to do is we are trying to maintain the enrollment while becoming more efficient, so that so that the students actually get the classes that they need. So that, because the knee-jerk reaction, of course, would be just to cut the budget. And I think that, if we take a hacksaw to the budget, we do no one any favors. And I think that what we need to do is take a scalpel to the budget and to cut out areas and to enhance other areas. And we've said consistently that we need to increase enrollment in those key areas. But the best way of doing that, again, is at the divisional level, not at the central level.
And can I, just from an enrollment management point of view, maybe mention a couple of things? First of all, because of our budget, potential budget problem next year, which is $6.5 million, right. It is necessary now.
That's the new budget problem.
I was just going to say, I said next year, because we're dealing with 2.5 on top of it. We have like 11 million, it's like 11 million this year, or almost 12, I think, plus another 6.5 next year. If I've had those numbers correct in my mind, right, Rick?
Well, in 5 years, we will have gone from 126 to 104.
Right. So that's kind of where we are. But my point was, is that next year we are potentially dealing with a $6.5 million problem, next year being 12-13, bringing us down to that down to about $104 million, right? So in order to sort of deal with that, we brought the number of summer sections down to 181 in the credit arena. And we are, Dr. Bell is working with the deans, and the deans are working with their faculty to potentially reduce the fall by another, to use the term sections, another 300 sections, just to be able to get a head start on that. Now, if in fact the November tax initiative is approved and our situation brightens, and in the winter and spring we can begin to build back some of those sections that we reduced. The other thing that the schedules are being built on is this notion of the completion agenda. So trying to get students through the institution faster towards their goal of transfer, certificates, job completion, and degrees, or AAAS degrees. So that's the so-called completion agenda. So out right now, the deans are working with their faculty to build their fall schedules that are reduced by an aggregate number of 300 and focusing on what we're trying to say is this completion agenda. That's the philosophy right now. Now, in order to maximize, we're also saying that LGI is back on the table, and we're trying to get as many students in each one of those completion agenda sections as we can get in, so that we can serve as many students as possible, while at the same time being as cost effective as possible.
I have a question.
Al and then Roger.
Are we preparing in case we do not get the tax?
Yeah, we're going to base our budget on no tax ballot.
Right.
And we will have a contingency plan of what we do in case it does pass.
And second, I don't know if this is overly simplistic, but if we just, keeping in mind that we can never work outside the fire code, but if everybody just added an additional 10 students to their class, wouldn't that assist, wouldn't this be helpful?
To the extent that rooms are full, efficiency is increased.
Now, we have normal closing numbers that we have to keep in mind.
Right. There are other factors besides the cost to take into consideration when it comes to the number of students in a course.
No, I understand that, but I mean, if you have a class and you can add more students to your classroom, why don't we just do that?
Well, except it's not that simple, Al, because of a variety of reasons, academically and pedagogically and otherwise. But that's certainly something that the CNI committee is just about finishing on, the whole normal closing number situation, which then needs to go back to the FA and the district. Actually, the Academic Senate will approve, and then back to the FA and the district to determine how that's going to play out.
I am familiar with pedagogy, and I do understand that. I just, sometimes things can be simple, and yet we can make them complicated, and I just seems like, do we make this overly complicated?
Okay, Roger, I think.
Well, I think this is a very complex discussion, but I first of all want to commend Bob and the CNI committee for working hard on setting some very solid normal closing numbers that have been part of our FA discussions, Senate discussions, CNI discussions for maybe 2 years. And a lot of people did some very good work. I'm very pleased. In English, for example, our normal closing numbers have been reduced for the major basic skills and basic comp classes, and we think that's a good thing. And we're concerned that as soon as there at least appears a budget crisis, that all of that work just gets thrown out. So 2 years of hard work and thought about pedagogy gets lost because of some kind of short-term expediency. Now, the second thing is, Rick and I have tangled about this endlessly. We have disagreements about how the money is spent, that as classes have been cut, as we face the economic crisis, the college continues to increase its reserves. The college continues to have money in certain accounts, and we've challenged that. For example, earlier we were talking about technology. Is this a time to be cutting ruthlessly the classes and increasing technology at all? And I think these are all very hard decisions, but we're concerned in the FA particularly that we don't want to begin to abuse normal closing numbers. That's a work issue. It's a pedagogy issue as well. And so we are having an FA meeting next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, in Creveling, and we usually have a budget overview from our point of view, and Rick he always presents from his point of view, and we do disagree. And of course, the state is not in a good place. I'm going to be in Sacramento on Friday and get some update from our CCCI group. But in general, we're concerned about crying the sky is falling when our particular campus does have sizable reserves which haven't been touched and in fact have increased. So it's a lot of complexity there.
And just so that I'm real clear, the reserves are tapped into and are diminishing as we speak. The reserves are not simply cash, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make, is if you're looking at the ending balance, that is not all cash. Okay, ending balance includes accounts receivable and various other different things. The point is that in order for us to make payroll, that's about $9 million per month. I think that we're currently down to about $15 million in cash. We're expecting that to diminish down to close to zero come the end of June because we're into full apportionment deferral by the state of California at this moment. So for us to continue to make payroll and continue to pay our bills, we actually have to have cash on hand. We do have GASB 45 issues where we have to cover one way or another the cost to the retirees. And of course, you know, the area that people mostly complain about is the capital outlay fund. The bottom line is, and I did the analysis and presented this to the board the last time, is that over a period of 8 years, we will be shorted by the state, some on the order of $72 million. So if we were to deplete all of our reserves, we'd still be in the tank for probably on the order of $50 million. So the fact is that we have to plan our ongoing expenses to match our ongoing revenue stream. You cannot do this on a one-off basis. And that is the reason why the district is in the shape that it's in relative to other districts.
I think Ed was first and then Dustin.
Just very briefly, I understand the concern about the budget and its impact on sections and the issue of student numbers in those many sections. All of that is certainly tied together and related. But we're also trying to address the issue of student completion. And so when numbers in, say, English and other divisions went down, it's with the intent of getting to the numbers that are going to permit us to move students forward through the system, taking their various English classes, math classes, and the other classes that they need for their own goals. So we want to make sure that we maintain that in our sight as we're dealing with these budget issues, because certainly budget is important, the money is important, but we want to make sure that we're also keeping our focus on the completion of degrees, certificates, and moving students forward in their own plans.
I went to the spring plenary in San Francisco last week, and Jayana Chabadi gave a presentation on the budget while I was there in a breakout. And I want to get the further details from her, so I'll speak very vaguely right now. But on her campus, I think it's either Solano or Napa Valley, the Academic Senate, in consultation with the administration, designed a very clear program about not only how classes get cut, but also how they get added back in. And it was very detailed. She showed us a PowerPoint with this particular, like a flow chart. I would recommend that our campus look into doing something similar. So when times do get better, that we will have a plan about how classes will get added back in a very efficient way. And they did it in the kind of way that you were talking about, or doing about the most efficient way to help students get through. I was very, very impressed. Certainly the people at that breakout were very impressed. So I'll follow up with her, get the actual slides, and bring it to the administration's attention here and the academic senate's attention here.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, one last plug for Dr. Van Pelt and the Budget Resource Allocation Committee. This committee is meeting regularly every Friday, and all the topics that we were discussing here are delved into in great depth at those BRAC meetings, and it's 12:30 to 2:30 on Fridays, either in Kremlin or the Circadian, usually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Van Pelt. Dr. Lascamato.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Vice President Miller. The Comprehensive Professional Development Program Committee, CPDP, has a draft policy, has a draft policy that went through CAPM. Maybe you can help me with it. Their acronym is CAPM.
Oh, CAPM.
Yeah.
Council Bracket.
Right, and the Executive Committee, and we'll be coming, and it will be coming to the College Council as an FYI at your next meeting. And we're hoping that we'll be bringing it to the board in June for adoption. Now, the latest addition to the CPDP, which in fact impacts all of us, is an online training that will be implemented soon, hopefully as early as May. Keenan and Associates, who are our third-party administrator regarding risk management, has this free program called Online Training for All Mandatory Type Training. All of us need to take training such as sexual harassment, discrimination, ethics training, etc., etc., etc. But the nice part about this training is that we can do it online. The real nice part about this training is that the longest training is about 20 minutes. The shortest training is about 8 minutes. So, you know, it's not that long. The nice thing about it is that the system will automatically inform you of when you are required to take the training. In general, you'll have 30 days to take the training online, and kind of give you an idea, just part of the system is that you can take the training, and if you get interrupted and you need to go somewhere, you can log off and then log back in later on to continue the training. So it's a package that's coming soon. I'll be providing more information about it as we get down the road on this thing here. The Human Resource Advisory Committee that represents all the constituents here on campus, they're really close on presenting their revised hiring policy and procedure. I know the faculty already has theirs at the Academic Senate. I know the classified staff, they're just kind of tweaking here and there, and hopefully we'll be bringing the policy procedure revisions to the College Council before the new year starts, the new school year starts, and some of it will be for whatever action you need to take, and some of it will just be for FYI. The Campus Diversity Committee met on March 6th, and is that Son? Mon, right? Yeah, did you get my email?
I did.
Yes, and now Mon is part of our Campus-wide Diversity Committee meeting. The Campus Diversity Committee is going to start working on a campus-wide diversity vision mission statement that we don't have. And the purpose of that is to eventually lead into a campus-wide policy procedure, which will come to the college councils also. So that's basically my update on what's going on in human resources.
Any questions for Dr. Lossman? Al?
With regard to the training, is there anything that is this a requirement, or is this just training that you would recommend?
The risk management training, the training itself, the online training, the heading for this thing is called Safe Colleges and Safe Colleges Training. And it's basically all mandatory training. A lot of it pertains to facilities like safety kind of training, how to lift, how to bend, those type of training.
Well, we do that training already at facilities, and if I'm not mistaken, don't we, Dave? We do have our and we have it twice a month, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So is this in addition to that training?
I want to say this is in addition to the training. This is training that as we start getting ready to implement this training, I will be meeting with probably the supervisors or whoever and trying to find out who needs what. So if you said, Dave already had a bend and how to pick up, how to bend his knees kind of training, then probably the system will not notify him that he needs to take this training. But if you have staff or employees in your department that needs the training, and your next training says not until 2-3 weeks from now, you could actually schedule them that week to take it online. But that would be your choice as a supervisor also. The whole idea is to have online training, to have training available. When the organization or the department or unit cannot conduct mandatory type training in a timely and consistent manner, this online training becomes available, so it kind of supplements the department. Okay.
Anything else, Dave?
Yeah, I do want to make sure that we do have representatives there of classified staff with the managers and stuff, especially if you're going to make it mandatory.
Well, I'm not making it mandatory. This training are state required mandated training.
That's mandatory.
Yeah,
right.
right. But we'll make sure that the district is not making it mandatory. The state has made it mandatory, and therefore we have to make sure the training is happening.
Well,
So yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Al?
Facilities is governed by, we are required, and I know that we carry out that training religiously on a bi-monthly basis, to adhere to a OSHA approved and recognized shop. We cannot operate outside of training parameters. And so my only question is HR going to be taking over our training regimen that we have to do, or is this a supplement to that?
As I said, it's a supplement. So I'll sit down with you and say, okay, we need to take a training regarding banning and setting, whatever the case may be. And if you say, well, we have this OSHA training that we are required to take, then what I'll simply do is not schedule you for those kind of training. Because we in HR would be the ones to be coordinating with the supervisors. And then we'll coordinate with Keenan. And then we'll say, Dave needs to take X training. Then what the Keenan system will do is automatically send Dave an email saying that from August 1 to August 30th, you need to complete this training. But it's not training that will automatically just put out there without you knowing about it.
Okay, so I think we're kind of getting in the weeds of the process here a little bit, and maybe offline you guys can talk about that. But at the end of the day, this is really about reducing our exposure and our workers' comp costs and the like. It's all about trying to get our rate lower, and also obviously for the safety of our employees.
And that's correct. And so, I just want to kind of give you this information, give you an FYI that this is coming down the pike here.
Okay. Anything else for Dr. Lascano? Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the Public Advocacy Committee.
Actually,
oh, you have a question? I'm sorry.
I'd like to go to back to standing committees reports.
Sure.
For 1 second.
Absolutely.
Given the planning and priorities is about to hopefully be done with its recommendation and be pushing it up here, I would like planning and priorities to start turning its attention back to ongoing accreditation, which was the initial charge, and I think that's something that we should start to address before the end of this academic year.
Okay, can you repeat that again? What do you?
Sure. Well, it is all being recorded anyway.
No, it's just for me because I was like, we're going to go in someplace else.
I would like the planning and priorities attention to start going back towards its initial charge, which was accreditation, making sure that sort of the general overall, because now that we're heading out of realignment, I feel like that committee should go back to doing what it was initially set up to do.
Okay.
And I'd like that to be sort of on the next couple of agendas for planning priorities, with a very preliminary sort of update to the College Council to happen before the end of the academic year.
Okay, well, we can certainly agendize this for the next meeting and provide some kind of an update on where we are with accreditation and what have you, which I think is what you're referring to at the moment, right?
Yeah, and then just getting planning and priorities back to the initial charge.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else before I move the agenda? Public Advocacy Committee, and I'll just briefly start the discussion by stating that about 3 or 4 meetings back now, we were talking about the notion of the college creating through the College Council a Public Advocacy Committee to help with the general campaign, both locally and at the state level, regarding the fiscal realities of California community colleges, and specifically this institution, and what we might do to help our legislators and others advocate for more resources. So at the time that we talked about this briefly, we talked about how each of the shared governance groups and perhaps our collective bargaining groups would appoint 1 or 2 people to an advocacy committee that at least initially, I and perhaps the Academic Senate President would take co-leadership of as we basically developed a plan to advocate in a more public way and to contribute to the cause, if you will, to try and get more support for community colleges in general and specifically our institution. So I guess the question is each group prepared to appoint some people? I know I got an email from Lone Shane an hour or two ago with 2 appointments to this group. So I'll just open the discussion that way.
Just to let you know that the Academic Senate did put out a request to faculty to participate with this type of advocacy, and we've only had 1 volunteer, and that's Dustin.
Okay.
So we are still looking for volunteers.
Okay. Classified, Gary? Yes.
We also put out a call. I received 2 people. Hopefully at the next classified Senate meeting, we'll have those 2 individuals approved.
Okay. All right.
So, all right.
All right, so that's classified that. We've got students. Roger? Yes.
Well, real quickly, first of all, the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, or FAC, FACCC, is our primary faculty professional advocacy organization in Sacramento, spearheaded by Executive Director Jonathan Lightman. He is presenting to the group I'm in on Friday in Sacramento. And so I would recommend that any kind of faculty involvement and others go to the FAC website.
task force recommendations. And that's what this list is about. Dr. Mann was impressed with it. I think she shared it with a number of groups on campus. She shared it statewide. So we thought it would be appropriate for the College Council just to at least have the document. It's a document that is ongoing, if you will, in terms of its preparation, because every day we continue to do more things that relate to our Education Master Plan as well as the Student Success Task Force recommendations. And it is by no means all-inclusive. There are lots of other things happening on campus that are not even on this list yet. So that's kind of what this is, information item. Any comments or thoughts about it?
The only thing I want to add is that item 3.1, enrollment priorities, is something that we'll be addressing in just a moment when we get to that new revised policy.
Yes, we will. Dustin?
I just want to bring to the group's attention two resolutions that passed the statewide Senate last Saturday in relation to 3.1 and 3.2. I'll take 3.2 first. It was a very emotional debate, but ultimately the statewide Senate approved that bog-free waivers should be required to be given in cases of absent academic progress. That was a very, very emotional debate, but I ultimately voted for that. And number two, a proposal related to 3.1, which encourages all local colleges to institute prerequisites to help students make sure they're meeting their basic skills goals within their first year. It was also passed pretty close to overwhelmingly.
Right. And that could portend big changes on a local level as well from a curriculum perspective. So,
and just along those lines, just so you know that right now we're working on a revision to the prerequisite policy to permit for content review by the C&I committee, but it's in its very first draft one form at this point.
So I think maybe in the topic, PCC should be very sort of being ahead of the curve a little bit. And back in December of 2010, and when we put our Educational Master Plan together prior to that, anticipating much of where the state was likely going to be heading. And then, of course, as a result of that, we've got sort of a head start on what's happening. Okay. So at this point, let's move on to item number 8. And I'm going to ask President Martinez of the Academic Senate to report out on what's been happening. And this is really also part of the work, or a significant part of the work of the Enrollment Management Committee on campus.
Right. So you have a copy of Policy 4020 in front of you. Unfortunately, you can't see the changes to this policy easily because on the official form it's in red. But this policy has been changed, has been vetted by the Enrollment Management Committee for quite some time. Of course, there are relatively few changes on the first page. As you see there in front of you. We had a lot of discussions in the Enrollment Management Committee. This is draft number 7, just to let you know. We had good input from faculty. We had 4 to 5 faculty members participate actively in these discussions. We had student representation, including Chris Fennessy. And Chris, I'm sorry, I don't remember the other students' names.
That was John Fraser and Ashley Jackson.
Okay. All right, we had input from Classified, Glenna Watterson in particular. So we had a lot of debate about the priority registration that you see there in front of you. Some of this is mandated by either Education Code or Title V regulations. Item A, for example, says that we do have to give first priority to continuing new, re-entering DSPS, EOP&S, foster youth, active duty military, and veteran students. So, Section K, students who fail to declare a program of study after 30 units completed here at PCC will have lower priority. So too will students who have accrued more than 100 units at PCC, but not including ESL or basic skills courses. Okay. On the next page, section 3, the students were very adamant on having an appeals process, and so there it is. We discussed that appeals process with them extensively. We made a few modifications and clarified the language, but there is an appeals process so that students can advocate that their registration be restored when it does move down. And then on the last page, this is sort of beginning the discussion that Dustin referred to just a few minutes ago. How do we decide, in bad times, how do we decide what sections get reduced? And in good times, how do we decide what sections get added back into the schedule, into the program, you might say? Well, this is just the beginning of giving the deans and the management some guidance about how to do this. If you look at section 6B, it says highest priority shall be given to the following types of classes. I'm sorry. This actually begins with section A. It says greatest priority shall be given to those courses that enable students to complete CSU transfer curriculum majors, also known as the Associate in Arts for Transfer or the Associate in Science for Transfer degrees. So again, managers there are being told what is the priority when it comes to class sections. Section B gives guidance about other types of courses that have high priority, and section C, the least priority should go to courses that are identified as offering only elective credit for transfer, or courses identified as standalone by the C&I committee. And those are courses that do not connect to any type of degree, certificate, or transfer. Some of those are still being offered. They're in the schedule, and I have to question, why are they there in the time of budget cutbacks? So here it is. This will be presented for the first time at the Academic Senate meeting this coming Monday. We never vote on anything on the first presentation, so the earliest at which it will be voted on in the Academic Senate will be May the 14th.
And then from there it goes to the CAPM, Council of Academic Professional Matters, right. And then from there to the Superintendent President for action if he determines to do so. And assuming that he does, it would then go to the Board of Trustees Policy Subcommittee, and this could get us to the June 20th board meeting for action if it all works on schedule.
That's our hope.
And this was a result of a year's worth of work, and I agree wholeheartely that this is the beginning of that conversation that Dustin brought to everybody's attention as we do it. And again, it's completion agenda oriented. It's moving people through. Simon?
Does this affect, so I'm looking specifically at the class scheduling priorities, does this come into effect when reducing sections, and does that include, reducing sections to 0? So effectively the reduction of a course. So for example, there's a theatre arts class here that offers only elective credit. There's only one section. Given that it has least priority, does this cover reducing that from 1 section to 0 sections, or is it just a reduction where there are still sections available of that class?
Well, I think that would be up to the division dean and the vice president for instruction, but I think it's possible that it could take 1 section down to 0 sections depending on what that division dean and the vice president of instruction determine.
Okay. In terms of priorities for the students.
Priorities for students. Roger.
I have a question about on page 4, under 6A, greatest priority for CSU transfer. Right. And excuse my ignorance, how is that different from B2, courses that transfer articulate majors for commonly pursued PCC students?
Okay. 6A is referring to those courses that constitute what we refer to as the SB 1440 degrees. Right. So in the catalog, you'll see a listing under the various degrees that we offer, and the course has to be in that list for that specific major. Now, B2, there are other courses that are not necessarily part of an SB 1440 degree, but which nonetheless are transferable and can apply toward a major. Thinking of an example from English, let's see. I know, for example, that I believe it's the Shakespeare courses will be in the new forthcoming SB 1440 degree for English, but some of the other literature courses will not. They are? You put them all? Okay. All right.
Your mother's did not raise any dummies, clearly.
I see. All right. Well, if you had other literature courses, they would be transferable. They may apply to the major, but they would not be as critical as the SB 1440 listed courses. That's why we put them all in there. All right.
I think Dave first and then Dan.
Yeah, if this goes to the June Board of Trustees and it gets approved, when does it go into effect and how will students be notified of it?
We are actually in the process of discussing that right now. It might have a kind of a rolling implementation scenario. It might go into effect the winter of 13, the spring of 13. It certainly couldn't go into effect fall per se, because we're well along on fall, but we're discussing that. Student services and enrollment management and other offices, we're trying to figure that out. Crystal, yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, since this is an academic and professional matter, is this an information-only item for us?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
It is information only. And Dan?
I was just wondering where courses for transfer to UC or USC or Stanford or anything like that, do they fall under B2?
B1 and B2.
B1 and B2, okay.
Yeah. Justin?
Just as an information, there was a representative from the UC, I think, or at least somebody representing somebody from the UC, and although UC is not required to follow SB 1440, they are looking very favorably on also honoring the SB 1440 degrees that we give from community colleges. Again, although they're not required to do so, they seem to be looking more and more favorably on honoring those degrees.
Yeah, and I'll also report very briefly, but this is, again, a collective pat on the back to everybody here at the college, particularly our faculty. At the moment, I think we are the #1 community college as far as the completion of SB 1440 degrees in the state. We have 7 approved and at least 9 more in the pipeline, and the next closest was, I forget the college, but they were 2 below us, and then everybody else is a distance third and beyond. So our faculty and are led by...
well, the C&I committee needs to be commended, especially for their hard work in approving these degrees.
And Armando Duran has really done a great deal of work to help facilitate this process, as well as Elizabeth Woods and Matt Jordan and a bunch of others.
Yes.
Okay, so as Chris, yes, thank you. As Crystal mentioned, this is information only for the council, but is there any other comments about this document? Sincere thanks to our students who were very actively involved in this process, and we appreciate that. They did a great job. Okay, so let's move on then to item 9, the Professional Development Program Status Update, and I believe this is something that the Academic Senate has been working on.
Right. Dr. Lastimado mentioned this policy just a few minutes ago during his presentation. This is a new policy, completely new, on titled a comprehensive professional development program. This will be, again, considered for the second time at the Senate meeting on Monday, and I do expect a vote on that policy at our meeting. So it was presented at our last meeting. I think it was favorably received. Our professional development, as you know, has basically drifted, to put it mildly. We have not had any type of comprehensive professional development here for quite some time. This makes an effort to coordinate the professional development needed by faculty, by classified staff, by managers. It also does provide for a new shared governance committee that will obviously have representation from the faculty, from the staff, from the management, and from the students to make sure, again, that our professional development as it goes forward meets the needs of our various constituencies, and most importantly, it enables faculty to keep up with the training, skills, and development that we need to do our job.
And as a reminder, one of our standing committees is the professional development, and it's anticipated that that will become the shared governance group. And they will be the guiders, the shapers, the implementers of this policy 60/30.
Yes.
Chris?
As far as I know, isn't there already a shared governance professional development committee?
There
As far as I
is,
know,
and
has not
that
met
committee
this
now is taken into this policy, and it is put in charge of the overall coordination of professional development.
I see.
Okay, questions, comments? Dave?
Yeah, is this going to be just strictly for faculty, or is it going to be all training for everybody?
My understanding is that there will be, that shared governance committee will coordinate for the college campus, campus-wide, but then each constituency will have its subcommittee that can tailor professional development to their own needs. So in other words, there will be a subcommittee specifically for classified staff.
And what we're trying to do is coordinate, leverage resources, coordinate, make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. We're also hoping to have a sizable budget allocation for professional development that this group can help to oversee and make sure that we are moving in a coordinated fashion as we go forward here. I mean, for example, we just saw some of it, the conversation between you and Al and Dr. Lastimado regarding what's happening in your area, and that was a classic example of maybe the coordination and communication is not as two-way as it needs to be.
So in other words, if you want to go take a course or something like that, you would go through this committee, is what we're saying?
My understanding is that that's a good question, but they still have to develop guidelines to answer those types of questions, and right now they're just sort of in the talking stage.
Gary?
Yeah, I just want to concur to what Ed just said, right? We just put together or established a policy. We have not completed the procedure. Classified is being considered. There will be a subcommittee evaluating any training or professional development programs that need to be taking place for classified staff. So there is a representation there.
Okay, anything else on this particular topic? Do you anticipate when this might be coming back, or do you have any idea for the group as another information item?
Well, again, I do hope that we will vote on this on Monday and approve it, and so it's ready to go forward after that.
Okay, very good. Okay, item 10, Vice President's reports. We've been through those, and I don't, as VP of Ed Services, I think the only thing, I can't really add any more than what was talked about with enrollment priorities right now, and also in terms of the work that's happening relative to the building of the fall schedule right now that the deans and faculty and others are engaged in. And all is right with the world in that regard at the moment. Are there any announcements that anybody would like to make? Oh, yes, Dustin.
I think I'll go first and then Al will go second. I'd like to announce that the Sustainability Committee has agreed to meet jointly with the Student Sustainability Committee on May 10th. So we're going to have a meeting, and we're also meeting to, we're trying to start the framework of a policy on sustainability for the campus, and we're meeting to iron out some ways we could coordinate that really well with the students who have a similar committee.
Al, yes.
Additionally, at that May 10th meeting, we were going to talk about possibly the Sustainability Committee passing a resolution with regards to smoking on campus. And I know that we've been getting a lot of, we've been contacted a lot with regards to, smoking, dealing with social sustainability, and if we're an institution of learning, perhaps we need to be more socially responsible in making it where it is much more restricted on campus, if not on campus becoming a smoke-free campus.
Very good. And that reminded me, I did meet with Joe Bushko and Kent regarding the Health and Safety Committee. They are getting that up to speed, and we'll be starting that committee here shortly. And so, in that sense, you may want to liaison with Kent and Joe on what you're talking about there, so it's a joint presentation, because I know the smoking is of interest to them as well.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that the Sustainability Committee is looking at is when we think about sustainability, we think about resource, how to save resources, how do we prolong the life of the planet. But then there has to be an aspect of social responsibility in other areas, you know, dealing with some of society's issues that are in the forefront with disadvantaged groups and anyway, so we are addressing some of those social issues.
That's great. Okay. Additional announcements? Chris?
The next Board of Trustees meeting, which is a week from today, will be our joint meeting with the associate students. And so we'll be discussing a lot of what the associate students have done throughout this year, and having a discussion with the Board of Trustees then.
Okay, very good. Going back to sustainability for a second, I don't know, gentlemen, do you think it would be helpful to present to this group what's been happening with sustainability on the campus? Because it's amazing. I mean, we are very much ahead of the curve in terms of a lot of our community colleges in California, and I think this group might be interested to hear what's happening in terms of sustainability.
You know, interestingly enough, I just came back from Baltimore dealing with nationwide sustainability efforts at the University of Maryland, and I'm going to Harvard University on May 15th at the invitation of the Rockefeller Group, where we're going to be discussing bringing some money onto the campus from that body to support some of the things that we are doing here. So one of the things that is being discussed much more, including just on Monday at the State Chancellor's office, is the whole concept of social sustainability. And not only is Sacramento interested in a program that this campus was the first in the nation to do, and that deals with the community responsibility with trying to rehabilitate people that have been put on probation, and to do their community service hours on our campus, and encouraged to go take classes for basic skills. We are the first campus in the country to adopt a community God, I'm having one of those senior moments. Dave, what is it called?
You're talking about the probation people?
Yeah.
Our community service workers?
We have a community service program on campus, and we wrote an MOU with the County of Los Angeles court system, and they adopted it, and so now it is actually taking off at Sacramento. And we had Chaffey and Citrus College on our campus on Monday, where they're adopting it as well.
Very good. Well, could we maybe agendize this for the June 27th meeting? That will give you time to get out to Harvard and do what you need. Then maybe on the 27th you can come back and do a report on sustainability. Does that work for you, Jeff?
That works for me too.
Good. Okay. Any other announcements? Our next meeting is May 23rd. Simon, I have one item here, the Brown Act discussion, and we didn't agendize it, so I guess we can't talk about it. But would you like to share some thoughts about the Brown Act on the May 23rd meeting? Or what's your thoughts?
Sure, I can do that. The one thing I'll say right now is that technically with standing committee reports, you would need to have, if you wanted to take action on one, a list of what the committee is and what the action is that's being requested.
Okay.
That's the only one. But yeah, I would be happy to share. I know that I've been asked by one of the college committees, and I can't remember which one, to go in and talk a brief bit about the Brown Act. So I'm happy to do that at the College Council too.
Okay, very good. So then technically we were out of sync or out of round with the calendar committee.
It's
because of what you're saying.
It's debatable.
Yeah.
I would say that for this once, given that it's kind of standard practice, it's not, the calendar hasn't changed that much. It's not egregious. Okay. But yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll agendize a little discussion about the Brown Act at the May 23rd meeting, and we'll kind of go from there. I'm sorry, Al had one more? Yes.
You know, I wanted to point out and give kudos to David Krause. You know, he recently went off with the Clave students when they toured some of the educational facilities up in the northern part of the state, and I thought it was a really good thing to see how you have classified people getting involved in supporting the students, and CSCA getting involved in supporting the students. And it wasn't the first time. I know Dave went up to Sacramento to support them in their quest for, more representation and funding here. So I got to give my hat as off to you, Dave. You did a real good thing, and you have a lot to be very proud of. And I know that the Clave students are very much happy with what you've done.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Just a really quick announcement, sorry,
Sure.
related to what Simon was talking about. Leslie Kawaguchi from Santa Monica College is coming to our May 14th meeting, and during that Senate meeting, she will be talking about the Brown Act as well. She's like a statewide expert on that. She's our
great.
Area C representative on the statewide Senate. She will be here on May 14th.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Simon and Dave.